Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Sparklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to gather a cadre of writers, thinkers, and teachers who are transforming the world, one character at a time. And it all starts with one thing, a deep understanding of human motivation, why people do what they do, and the forces that drive them. To gain that understanding, I am mining the intersection of psychology, theology, and philosophy to make you a better writer. This is episode number 110, Zettelkasten, Syntopical Reading, Pursuing a Theme. We've been following along with the concept of taking Mortimer Adler's idea of syntopical reading, where you spread out a number of books at the same time and read them all at once, and comparing that to the ability to do the same kind of a thing sequentially, one book at a time, if you're reading your data into a Zettelkasten. Because a Zettelkasten will preserve the information from one book and give you a framework in which to add information to the next. We combined it with Zettelkasten, who recommends starting with a foundational book, and we used my book, Writing with Emotion, as the foundational book. And now we gave an example yesterday of adding a note from a second source. In this case, the second source was Character Traits and Virtues by Peterson and Seligman. So now what we're going to do is dive in a little bit more and show, what I want to show with this is how you can do something when you're reading syntopically into a Zettelkasten that would be hard to do using Adler's approach, where you pre-select your books and have them all laid out. And I'll show you exactly what I mean with a specific card example. Okay, yesterday we talked about how we were going to number this card, the nature of a taxonomy. And we found that using the effortless numbering system, it was truly effortless. It was just the next card number in all of the cards that followed 4D. And 4D was our taxonomy of the character traits. And the 1, 2, 3, and 4 were the 4 groups, the first level of the hierarchy. And 5 is this outside source from Character Traits and Virtues on the nature of a taxonomy. Now, when we brought this card in, it set up the elements of a controversy because it's kind of saying that, it's not saying outright, but it's kind of implying that a taxonomy has to be an outgrowth of a theory. And if it isn't an outgrowth of a theory, not only might it not be valuable, but it might actually be misleading if you read on. So let's pursue that further and take a look at that extra note. Okay, here was that extra information if we read on in Character Traits and Virtues, where they basically are telling us that if the theory is sound, the underlying theory of the taxonomy is sound, then it can guide a discipline. And they specifically give as an example the Linnaean classification system when combined with the theory of evolution. And then they say, but whoa, if the underlying theory is wrong, if it's contradictory, if it's not well stated, then it can be a misdirection. It can do more harm than good. So that is gives you kind of a requirement, or there's an implication there, that a taxonomy must come out of a theory. And I question that. I challenge that. Perhaps because I come out of a computer science background where we use the word taxonomy a little bit differently, where we use it as a hierarchy, usually for like a data set or an organizational system for a program, where we show how you go from the general to the specific in an organized manner. And that's really all in a computer science world, the word taxonomy means. Otherwise, in a biological world, it really is synonymous with the Linnaean taxonomy of the animals. So it's clear then that Peterson and Seligman are borrowing the biological term, but not quite using it in the sense that the computer science people use it. But they're saying that there's an implication there that if it's going to be useful, it's going to have to come out of a theory. And that I challenge, because I know how useful a taxonomy is in computer science without it coming out of a theory. So I wanted to know that I would propose that a taxonomy, that you simply propose a taxonomy, and if the taxonomy fits the data and if it's useful, then it's a productive taxonomy. But what we have right here is a question that's set up. And this question is going to require us to go beyond both my book, Writing with Emotion, and the Peterson-Seligman book, Character, Strengths, and Virtues, because we are at loggerheads and we need some additional information to break the tie. So let's take a look and see. So I took a look, did a couple of Google searches. And one of the things that I discovered was, okay, so when was the Linnaean theory proposed? Well, Linnaeus proposed his theory around 1735 and set up his taxonomy. So, that's information that comes out of the University of California Museum of Paleontology via a Google search. Okay, well, how does that compare then to Charles Darwin and the theory of evolution? When you look there, you find out that, about 1859, over 100 years later. So by my reckoning and my math, I would say that what I see, if we have a highly useful combination of a taxonomy and a theory, it appears to my humble eyes, just based on calendar, that in fact, if one aided the other, then it would necessarily be true that having a useful taxonomy helped create and guide a theory. So what I see happening is the reverse. I see the taxonomy coming first, turns out to be useful, and it guides the theory. The data appears to support my position. So I'm not the purpose of this example other than the curiosity, and I was genuinely interested in this from a curiosity standpoint. But the reason why I present this example to you is to compare how working with Zettelkasten and reading books sequentially, when you bump the ideas from the two books together, questions arise, and you can separately research those questions very easily and very quickly and pull them in. Now, just for completeness, we've been talking about the simplified method, the effortless numbering system. Where do we get the numbers here? And I just would close this presentation by taking a notice of the numbers. We noticed yesterday we went through the effort of determining that we would want to take this card that brings up the nature of a taxonomy, and we would want to give it card number 4D5, because 1 through 4 were already taken with the 4 character trait groups, and that was resilience, balance, insight, and empathy were 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that meant our next available number was 5. So now when we go deeper into what is the nature of a taxonomy, what we're really doing is we're diving into 4D5A with some additional depth. And because we're going in with additional depth, the number elongates. So now instead of 4D5, we're talking about 4D5A, where we talk about advantages and disadvantages of a taxonomy as proposed by Peterson and Seligman. Then, when this question itself requires further research, and I pursued it to 2 Google searches to establish a calendar, which Google's pretty darn good at calendars if nothing else, then those numbers became 4D5A-1 and 4D5A-2. Because again, when we pursue the topic in greater depth, the number grows. It's always number, letter, and every 4 we throw in a dash just for readability. So this would be 4D5A-1, and the companion one on Darwin's theory of evolution, 4D5A-2. So now you have an example. As far as I'm going to take it, you can see now how you read syntopically into a Zettelkasten, how you can do that with the effortless numbering system. And we already saw yesterday how the use of a directory card gets rid of all of the problems of trying to take which of the cards that logically follow a card ought to come first. And the answer is they all ought to come first. And they can all come first when we make a directory card, such as we saw yesterday. So that is the conclusion of the topic, how to read syntopically into a Zettelkasten. Unless you have any questions, and I'm going to check especially over in LilyPub, because we've had some pretty good discussions going on there already. If you don't yet have my book, you can get it at my website, KathleenSpracklin.com/book. So I will see you tomorrow with a fresh topic. Bye-bye.